This is the Seahawkers podcast, live and uncatfished. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and I am joined by my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert, as the Seahawks have defeated the New England Patriots 23-20 in overtime out here in Foxboro. I know it just says me on the screen, but dude, here we are in Boston.
That's all right. You can take all the credit for this because honestly, when I watch the game in person, it's a lot harder to break it down for y'all. But yeah, a good time out here in Boston, man. Everybody's been great. The folks that hosted us with the Boston Seahawkers group, they were fantastic. Just a great experience all the way around. Gillette's a fun stadium to be at. It was a great time, especially when you come away with a dub.
I see we've got the snail live in the chat waving at us. I know we've got quite a few folks coming in too. And as you come in, be sure and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you are new here, we are up over 4,500 subscribers. So a big thanks to everybody who has helped get us there. And Vibe Zero, the first one in as live executive producer with the $4.99 super chat. A win is a win is a win, right? Winning is better than losing.
Winning is better than losing, even if it's a second ugly loss in a row. But yeah, Seahawks were able to pull it together there. And thank goodness they kicked at the end of the fourth quarter there. I was starting to get worried they're going to go for it again after having limited success in short yardage situations, getting us to overtime and being able to prevail there. So yeah, an interesting win. I don't know exactly what it tells us about the team in a larger sense, right? Because, you know, the offense was, let's just say up and down throughout the game, and defense looking solid again, although giving up a ton on the ground.
Well, let's start off with what Matthew Phillips was saying on the screen, and that it was, he says, super glad to embarrass them in a game that they trotted out their trophy for. They made a point throughout the day. Over and over about their Super Bowl victory over the Seahawks. And so, yeah, it's while maybe they got the more important game, this one, it still felt good to just, Patriots fans didn't get all the enjoyment out of the day.
That's true. That's true. We stole the ultimate enjoyment today. We got Ryan, the actual live executive producer, coming in with his $9.99 super chat here. Go Hawks. Great work to all the flockers who are at the game cheering us on. And that was something that stood out early, Brandon, is just how many different 12s that we saw, not just on game day, but the day before walking around the city. I mean, 12s were coming out of the woodwork, and it was awesome to see.
I don't know if we made it on the broadcast or not, but it was definitely enough of a crowd that, you know, there was camaraderie, I think, among all of us who made it there. That, yeah, and plus, you know, it was fun. We went through all that same experience of having to deal with the Super Bowl stuff throughout the game, but we survived that. And I guess while we're talking about good places to start off, because yes, I know that maybe it wasn't the prettiest win, still a victory. And there were some big moments in this game. For example, you know, we got the stat that this is the first time two receivers have gone over 10 catches and over 100 yards apiece. DK Metcalf finishing the game, 10 receptions, 129 yards. JSN, 12 catches, 117 yards, 16 targets for JSN, 14 targets for DK Metcalf. And then, you know, throw in there the fact that Tyler, he caught 2 balls, but then there were also 2 passes thrown his way that ended up being critical penalties. One setting them up for a score and another one keeping a drive alive.
Tyler did do his part, although it was clear they were going to get DK and JSN involved early and often in this game. DK with the early 56-yard bomb, shaking the defender and taking it to the house. And after watching the Patriots kind of just jelly it down our throat and score early, it was nice to see that answer right out of the gate. Not let them get up a couple scores and just take the air out of the game by running the football as they did all day.
Yeah, to help getting the score early. The Patriots, man, in terms of their run game, yeah, you're not wrong. Gibson, 11 carries, 96 yards, almost 9 yards per carry from Gibson. And then Stevenson was just pounding the ball, 21 carries, 81 yards. So only 4 yards per carry for Stevenson. But I feel like while they were able to hold him in check relatively early, those carries, I think it helped build towards some bigger carries from him later on. and then also those the bigger carries from Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, that 1-2 punch was very effective throughout the game. And I think we said in one of our pregame shows too, like how much I thought that Gibson's a heck of a running back. And I couldn't believe that, he got out of Washington and is there with the Patriots. But a clash of styles in terms of offensive styles. You see Gerard Mayo take his team and understanding the limitations of his quarterback and really leaning heavily on the running game. I mean, time of possession heavily in favor of the Patriots. And that was frustrating to watch from the stands, just feeling like it was just getting jellied right down our throats all freaking game, when Ryan Grubb was kind of sticking to his playbook of spreading them out, running a lot of things out of gun, and really never getting Sharps on track.
Yeah, and Dennis McKinney posting in the chat today is great. Niners lose to the Vikings, Rams lose to the Cardinals, and the Seahawks beat the Patriots in overtime. See, no longer are we having to share the top of the division with the 49ers. First place for our Seahawks. And you talk about the differences between the quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett, 15 to 27, just 149 yards, an average of 5.5 yards per carry. I think it was an even lower average per target. He was sacked 3 times. And then you compare that with the day Geno had. Holy smokes. 33 of 44, 327 yards and a touchdown, that long touchdown. He's only sacked 3 times, which he had to deal with a lot of pressure. He had to deal with a lot of pressure. He also had to deal with a lot of drops from the receivers.
Oh my goodness, the drops were absolutely infuriating. And yeah, like Jay's pointing out here in his comment, passed for 327 yards, 75% completion percentage, and the game-winning drive. And no, you really can't ask for more than that. Kept us calm throughout the game. Another game where Geno really did carry the football team. And the passing game was really the only thing that they were able to get going throughout the afternoon. And I mean, I'm still continually impressed by Geno. And I know that there's, that decreasingly smaller subsection of the fan base that would love to see Geno replaced. But holy smokes, this was one of those games that you look back on and you go, if it weren't for Geno, this is another L.
Carly saying Tyler needs to give JSN some tips on how to sell a defensive pass interference flag. Tyler needs to give everybody tips. I mean, the whole league probably watches Tyler to learn how he gets those DPI flags, because I think the one in the end zone may have been a little bit questionable. We were only going off of what we saw on the board in the stadium, so they may have not shared the angle that was that would show it off the most. But they tend to do that in the opposing stadiums.
They sure do. And on an afternoon that you did get run on quite a bit, the defense did step up in terms of the passing game and really limit, what is a limited receiving core throughout the day. When you see guys like Polk and Osborne, who I literally did not think was still in the league, have receptions, and Polk with the touchdown. Not exactly the most potent passing offense, but they didn't really want to test the corners either, it seemed like. I mean, with Reek and Spoon out there and Trey Brown, like, it was tough sledding for them throughout the air.
Wayne Fort says, what a game. Missed K9 in this one. We sure did. Sharps did well, though. He did okay. I guess they didn't have a ton of opportunity. We knew going in that, based on what we saw from Cincinnati, that they were probably going to be pretty tough against the run. Would have loved to see some of the other running backs on the field maybe in this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow any of our shows and you've heard Clinton talk throughout the week, he was really high on Kenny McIntosh being able to get a few touches and kind of get his footing in the regular season for the first time, but zero McIntosh from what I could tell throughout the day. And really, with the run game in the offense, it seems like it's kind of an afterthought for Grubb. It's like, all right, fine. Yeah, we got to run the ball a little bit. And again, it's all out of gun, and starts out like the one thing that I noticed throughout the day that emotion that kind of bothers me is they'd line up to the line of scrimmage, they'd flex the back out immediately, and then just seconds before the snap, run the back into the backfield with Geno. And I'm not sure that you can run effectively from that sort of motion and that sort of formation on the regular. I mean, you're going to get them now and then, just with the element of surprise. And I'm not sure what that motion even shows you. Like, in terms of, you heard Collinsworth, slobber all over himself about Sean McVay and all the motion that he had, last week in their primetime game. And you don't see a lot of the full across the field motion of just one receiver that kind of gives you that tell of man or zone or in that sort of thing. It's a lot of, okay, we line up and then we'll reline up with everybody and then go. And I'm not sure that's giving you the advantage that maybe some of these other offensive coordinators give you in the passing game with the way that they use motion.
Yeah, we saw some areas of the game where it was effective when Charbonnet lined up in the backfield, and then he would cut out to the outside and take a linebacker with him, and that seemed to then open up the middle of the field a little bit in terms of just how I thought Geno still was super effective. The run game not very effective, and that was really demonstrated when they had the 4th and 2 opportunity. They decided to run the ball on 4th and 2, which in terms of the way they're running the football, that seemed like kind of a, why would you do that?
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the cases for running the football a little bit more early and often is that just like the Patriots, where maybe Stevenson had a little trouble getting going at first, it's that accumulation of carries throughout the game that eventually does wear down the defense. And I know it's an old football adage that you wear people down in the run game. And a lot of people think that maybe that's not so true anymore. Or maybe it was a fable altogether. But I think it showed in this game that it is actually something that happens. And when you do get to those critical moments, like 4th and 2, and you go to try to play power football, the Seahawks were unable to do it.
Yeah. Well, it showed, the two different approaches offensively were very evident in this game, and it worked really well for the Patriots, able to get almost 200 yards rushing. They didn't need to lean on the passing game. They didn't need to lean on Jacoby. And then on the other side, we really needed to lean on Geno. And yeah, part of it is, like Sam said, it shows how important K9 is for the offense. But I think you can't just also rely on Charbonnet. I feel like you need to mix it up a little bit. You had other backs that you probably could have mixed it in as well and tried a few things. It worked out for us today. Is it going to work out every time? I don't know, but I'm glad. I'm glad it worked out this week.
Yeah, I'll take it. If it's a learning curve for Grubb as he comes into the league, I'll take it while getting dubs. And that's the way that you want to see that happen. No doubt about it. One thing defensively that was frustrating early on was Hunter Henry just having himself a day. Like it's almost like we forgot that he was a pretty good tight end at one point.
Well, all the tight ends. Any non wide receiver really was where the Patriots were leaning on. Hunter Henry, 8 catches, 109 yards. Jalen Polk, 2 catches, 12 yards. You compare those two. He was the leading non-tight end, and I guess Austin Hooper had a catch. Gibson had a catch. But, yeah, you had Polk with 2 catches. You had Osborne with 1 catch, and then, 3 catches between the 2 backs.
Yeah, it was tight end heavy. And I wonder if that had to do a little bit with both the linebackers being beat up with Baker and Dodson. Like we weren't even sure exactly who was going to end up starting at linebacker in a
Baker
position.
Goes out.
Yeah. And then Baker ended up going out at some point there. And I didn't really key in on exactly when that was. And maybe that's exactly when they started really hitting it with the tight ends. And maybe all y'all can tell us here in the chat, where exactly on the field they were attacking with the tight ends. Was it against linebacker coverage? That's something I'm interested to see in the rewatch.
I'm guessing it was linebacker coverage over corner coverage, just because the corners seem to have everybody on lockdown. One thing that I was a little bit surprised about looking at some of the team stats for the game, when you look at some of the third down efficiency numbers, the Seahawks relatively well. It's 7 of 15, 47% third down efficiency. When it came to 4th down, they picked up the 1 4th down on the quick sneak, and then they failed on the other 2-yarder.
Yep. It was a little hit or miss on that short yardage stuff, but this kind of felt like a little of the games that we watched last year when Pete was the coach, where, the offense struggled at times, but the defense actually stepped up quite a bit more, I believe, in this game, while still getting, jellied and giving up the time of possession disparity that we saw so often last year. That was super frustrating. But the difference in it was the third down numbers that you just brought up, being able to convert, stay on the field at least a little bit, rather than just going 3 and out under Waldron and us kicking it away and then having that time of possession really pile up on you.
And the defense did relatively well. And, okay, actually, we did a little bit better than the Patriots. They converted 6 of 16, so under 40% for their third down efficiency.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a solid showing there. Jay here said the linebackers got burned by Henry early. Okay. And then Julian Love, coming through with the big field goal block. Like that was a huge moment in the game. Clinton and I actually ran into Julian Love's dad after the game, and he was super excited about that, and an awesome dude too, by the way.
Yeah, Julian Love, as good of a moment that he had getting the field goal block, which turned out to be critical because there was the fact that we passed up on the field goal to go for it on fourth down. And after that, it felt like the offense just could not move the football. And it felt like that New England really was in control. I think they scored 10 consecutive points after that moment, then before Seattle was able to respond. And for the blocked field goal, it came after Julian was getting punished in the run game because they kept getting to the second level. The linebackers weren't there, and it was really reliant on him. He led the team in tackles this week, and I felt like not only did he save the game through the field goal block, but he saved it in terms of how many of those runs end up breaking out if he's not the last line of defense there.
Yeah, there's a couple times there. If he doesn't make that tackle, then it's off to the races. Defensively speaking, maybe not the showing that we thought, especially after watching last week and just how dominant the defense felt throughout the day, but effective enough. And once again, the poise and calm of Geno to lead the team through.
And the Seahawks did not give up a safety in this game. So
yeah, no safeties.
Progress.
Yeah, no, that's good. No doubt about that. The 4th and 2 that they didn't convert and that they passed up the field goal, Brandon, in the moment, were you thinking, yeah, man, let's go for this? Or were you a little bit more on the fence? Because we were a couple of seats apart, so yeah. I didn't know exactly what you felt there, and it was loud.
I was okay with the decision to go for it. But I thought I expected us to pass on that down just because that's kind of what we've been doing. And it seems strange and ineffective to go for the run. Maybe they thought it would catch him off guard. That didn't seem like the right call to me. And I would have been okay with them kicking a field goal in that moment because they would have gone up by 7.
Right. At that point, I actually, I was like, yeah, let's go for it. And it's one of those things where you get on the podcast and you don't always want to say, oh, every time they go for it, it was a bad decision. And every time, it miss, it's a bad decision. They go for it and make it, then it's a great decision. I actually liked them going for it in that moment. I was starting to get a little puckery at the end of the game there. I was screaming as loud as I could at the Seahawks sideline, which was right in front of us, kick the ball, Mike.
Mike, kick the ball.
Kick the ball. Like, it just get us to overtime and see what happens there. When we did lose the toss, I was getting a little worried just because of how they were able to sustain drives the Patriots with the run game. And but Seahawks defense stepped up there, get the ball back to Geno, and here we are.
It seemed like an easy call in that moment to go ahead and kick the field goal and tie it up. And yeah, it did make you nervous. It also made me wonder, as Patriots fans too, when they had that 4th and 1 on their side of the field, it seemed like that would be a moment to try and go for it. Now, I know that if you don't make it there, then the Seahawks would have been in field goal range. But with the way that they were converting on short yardage situations, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't go for it in overtime.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were pretty fair. They were fairly deep into their own territory there. I don't know if it was like the 35 or so. I mean, it would have been pretty gutsy, but
a little bit.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I guess it didn't work out for him. I had seen the comment here just a minute ago what the vibe was here from Craig in the stadium, and I would say that it was upbeat. They were, Patriots fans were excited-ish, but I do feel like they all had a fairly decent sense of who they are right now, what their team is right now. And as far as the Patriot fans that we were surrounded by, they were awesome. Like, all really welcoming. They were cool to talk to. I had a little man named Geo right next to me. He was awesome, man. He was having himself a good time. And I can't believe I can't remember the little redhead kid in front of us, little man.
The one was dancing up on
the seat. He had some killer dance moves up on his seat. And it was a lot of fun, but a lot of good back and forth. It was very respectful. I heard from a couple of the other fans that we had bumped into that, a heckler here or there, but for the most part, they were really hospitable, and I have zero complaints.
Yeah, I think just in terms of stadium vibe, it definitely, they recognize that time had passed and now that they've kind of gone through their own quarterback carousel, And now with Jacoby Brissett, Drake May not quite ready. They've gone through Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and I think either you or Clinton made a comment about Bailey Zappi.
Yeah.
And and they
wanted to forget that.
They wanted to forget that.
Yeah, they wanted to forget that. Brissett looked like he had hurt himself late in the game there for a hot second, and I'm not gonna lie, all of the Patriot fans around me were like fairly excited that maybe Drake May would be stepping in.
Yeah,
but they're gonna roll with Brissett, and I think just try to grind out these wins in that sort of style, which isn't exactly the most exciting, but it is effective when you're the lesser talented team.
Yeah, and I would expect that they continue to go with that. I see Charlie Malmberg on the in the commentary saying Murphy showed up. Why isn't he in more? I think that they just want to try and keep a rotation with those guys. And Murphy ended up having a half sack on the day. He had a tackle for a loss. And so for a rookie, and then I felt like when he was in there too, well, all of the pass rushing snaps were very effective against Brissett. Like, it was a little bit mind-boggling to me that we could be so effective in terms of the pass rush, but then be so ineffective in terms of stopping the run. And that was a little frustrating.
Yeah, and effective in the pass rush in terms of like getting pressure and getting some hurries on Brissett, but also an inability to get him to the ground. I mean, how many times did one of our defenders have him by one hand, and then Brissett would spin out and extend the play, and he wasn't able to take advantage of that always, but it was frustrating that they couldn't get him on the ground. In terms of Murphy in his playing time, as a rookie, you're probably going to ease him in a little bit. 17 game schedule is a heck of a lot longer than the college schedule. You want him fresh going down the stretch, as well as all the other guys on the defensive line. I think the most effective defensive lines, especially, during our Super Bowl runs, I mean, those were super deep defensive lines that they were able to rotate out, keep guys fresh, and have a more effective pass rush.
But I understand the sentiment that if he is in there and having an effect on every play that he's involved in, you want to see him out there all the time. We got Gornish Slick in the chat saying felt like the Hawks should have had 3 to 4 more sacks today. Jacoby was a magician. Yeah, Boy had a sack that I know Clinton was super unhappy about because he was looking for him as his What If Superhawk from our What If show, and he needed Mafe to have a sack and a half. He didn't get that, so he had an opportunity. There were guys in the backfield. Woolen whiffed on one where he came off the edge and was unblocked and just ran past Brissett. So yeah, it definitely felt like they had more opportunities. And so that's another thing that, while it wasn't perfect, you hope that they can grow from some of these moments, and we can really see that defense that we saw last week, we see glimpses of. And when it comes to beating a team like the 49ers and maybe the Cardinals now, based on what they did to the Rams today, we're going to need some of that added defensive performance.
Well, and one aspect of the defense that we talked about in the offseason quite a bit is just Mike McDonald. When he first got to Baltimore, it took him 3-4 games to really kind of get that defense playing the way that we all saw and was horrified by when we went up against them in Baltimore and just got dismantled. So I didn't expect the defense to be right out of the gate the first couple of weeks super dominant. I thought that it was going to take some time here for it all to gel, and a new coaching staff all the way around, a lot of first timers and a lot of positions. I think it is going to take a minute. This isn't the best version of the Seahawks team that we saw today. We're going to see a better version of this team down the stretch. I have full confidence in that.
Saw Mythic R in the chat saying first time viewing you guys live, and it looks like we have almost 200 folks in here. So please drop us a like and subscribe to the show if you are new. Yeah, big thanks for catching us live for the first time, Mythic. And yeah, just super happy to meet as many folks as we did. Been great, getting up over 4,500 subscribers today. That was a nice little milestone to pass while we were here. Yeah. And just kind of a fun trip overall.
It's been an awesome trip, a great Boston experience. Big shout out to Clinton and Brandon here for making it a lot of fun for me and babysitting me while I have little mini meltdowns in the city here and there. But as a whole, this has been just a blast. all the Boston 12s and all the 12s that made the trip and showed up here, all the guys that we got to meet, listeners of the podcast. You all know who you are. I can't go through the entire list here, but it was an absolute pleasure, and I've had a ball.
We did meet more people that I think that we could account for. Big thanks to Brina with the Boston Seahawks group who helped organize the bus ride and got a lot of us to the game. And yeah, we had that great time at the Yard House over at Fenway and got to meet a bunch of folks out there too. And Carly saying a W for Pete's birthday.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's super happy for the team.
I would imagine so. Yeah, no, I think so. I don't think it's in Pete's nature to like be super jaded and not want the success for the Seahawks going forward. That doesn't seem to fit his MO.
No, I don't think so. So, one thing I learned on this trip, Adam, not very good at darts.
Yeah, it turns out that my throwing motion is unorthodox and ineffective. So, yeah, we learned that.
Adam throws darts like you would throw a football.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there any other way to do it?
I believe there is another technique that majority of people use.
Oh, okay.
It seemed to work for you when you really let it loose.
Well, I do it about once every 7 years, and it showed.
Clinton saying he throws a dart like Smoking Jay Cutler on Corking and INT. We made some Uncle Rico comments, but Smoking Jay,
well, they were all fair.
A little more accurate.
They were all fair. They were all fair comments. I embarrassed myself and maybe these guys a little bit, and that made it worth it.
Yeah, Gordon Slick saying, glad you guys had a good time on the East Coast. We had a great time. Again, got to meet so many cool people, got to hear a lot of cool stories about how people became fans of this football team. And that's always one of the more fun things to hear is just how people end up being a fan of the Seahawks. And the stories are always almost, especially when you go on road games and you run into people that aren't, well, I grew up around Seattle. No, these are people that grew up in other places and just happen to become fans of the team, and those end up being real fun stories.
Oh, without a question, it was fun getting to hear those, and just a great time had by all, I think.
Yeah,
and a dub,
and we got the dub,
and the Dirty Niners lost, and the stupid Rams.
The Rams losing, the Niners losing, the Seahawks getting the 23-20 victory over the New England Patriots on a day where they were trying to rub our face in their victory as much as possible. Adam, it felt good.
It felt good. I even had a Patriot fan start to talk to me about the play that shall not be talked about right before overtime.
Yeah.
And it was hard to humor them, but I had to because we were in their house. And it was tough.
I don't know if we had to.
Maybe not. I don't know. Hard telling, not knowing. But either way, getting out with the dub, 2-0, and first place in the division, peeps. This is a great start.
Yep. Can't wait to be back later this week. We're going to be doing some 3 in, 3 out. We're going to be doing our flagship show. So drop us an email, gohawks@seahawkerspodcast.com. Skylar to the PNW. What's this?
Skylar Thompson up next week in the Dolphins. Yes. Yeah. Nothing would make me, well, no, that's not true. Not nothing, but few things would make me happier than if we can take down the Dolphins.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.